It's like I'm walking on sunshine.
All right, welcome to DoomCast number 12. I'm Charlie McGrath, your founder and co-founder of DoomCast, and of course Doug Owen, the other co-founder. I'm still working on our intro there. I don't know how to introduce ourselves.
That's okay.
Yeah. Charlie McGrath right here, wideawakenews.com. Doug Owen right over there, blacklistednews.com. This is DoomCast, and it is the 16th day of October 2013, and your government just bent you over and drove it home. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but you know what? If you're not feeling this by now, brother, it is time to stand in front of a mirror and see if you fog it up, because reality has not set in if you are not completely and utterly disgusted at this display that we've seen over the last several weeks, Doug, but especially...
Now, what is it that you're exactly talking about? I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, well, okay. Break it down a little.
Yeah.
Naturally, I'm talking about the government shutdown, which I'm all for. But what I'm not for is tacking another $1 trillion onto our debt and reopening the government at the same time, increasing the debt limit. And as we said last week, there was no deal, and we've seen all this optimism over the past week where we have a deal and the markets go up 300-400 points. Oh, there's no deal. It goes down 200 points. Oh, there's a deal again. It goes up 200 more points. Well, as we sit here tonight, the Senate has passed legislation that would increase your debt, America, increase the amount of money that you're responsible for, and it kicked it over to the House. And as we are doing the program right now, Doug Owen, that is underway. I mean, the vote isn't going to happen probably for quite some time, I doubt, during this hour podcast. I've got C-SPAN up here. I'm watching it. You know what? Washington, D.C., they're a bunch of... this is what we have. We have a bunch of whores in Washington, D.C. They are political whores that are destroying our country from within. They're a cancer that has to be removed. They are destroying this nation. They are driving us into the ground, and they do it with a smile on their face, just as if they were some kind of sneak thief in the middle of the night robbing you by switchblade. They think that we will just completely sit back and take it over and over and over again, and why wouldn't they? Because we do. But it's going to come to a point. It's going to come to a head, Doug Owen. The rubber's going to meet the road in this country and on this planet, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be utterly amazed, shocked, and horrified at the places that people of this nation go to. I don't want to get, it'd be really easy for me to say something that would be, misconstrued and get me yet on another list of some sort tonight.
If you're not on the list, then you're not hip. That's the way I see it.
Yeah,
when it comes to the government failure, I'm not sure exactly what the original goal or intent was, or how this is going to affect either party. I think that is what most of the pundits are looking at. Who's winning and who's losing? Yeah. I know that Congress can insider trade, and I imagine with the release of these announcements, they are making a lot of cash. I would like to look back in a few years and see how that played out, because all of that is public information. And most people wouldn't make the correlation, but I know that there are a lot of people that are making money with these huge swings, and it's just jerking the American people around on both sides of the political spectrum, to the left and to the right. Yeah. The idea that we can nullify Obamacare, that's great, but what we've ended up with, and I don't know where this even plays out or what the deal will be, just like Nancy Pelosi said, we'll have to see we have to pass it to see what is inside of it. So,
have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
So, we really have no idea. But I thought it was pretty funny. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh today, and unfortunately, but he's on the AM dial, and I was out and about, and he was talking about, we need to rescind these exemptions for Congress and for Barack Obama. And, of course, the obvious takeaway is that he himself is exempt from this care, if you will,
Absolutely.
that is given to all of us. And you would think that he would proudly want this if it is his hallmark. It's his
No, that and that's,
one
that's the
thing that he did while he was here.
It ain't over yet,
His
brother.
legacy.
It ain't over. Look, his legacy is going to be.
But think about that. I mean, that is a total sellout. So basically, it's just punishing Congress with what you're already being punished with, and
Yeah.
that is pretty ridiculous. And so we
you
saw
know what
a lot
Congress is going to be. Congress is exempt, right?
Yeah.
If you're in this political elite class, you don't have to waller down here. You don't have to waller down here with us scumbag citizenry. You don't. And I truly believe in my heart, Doug, as you see me grasping my chest right now, I truly believe this. They think that we are subhuman. We are. It's the way we're the sheep. Yes.
Yes.
You're gonna get yelled at for too many sound effects. I'm
All
telling
right.
you right now.
I'll keep it to a minimum. Keep it
Yeah,
to a
but
minimum.
this is what they think. I mean, this is what they think.
Yeah.
They think that they could put on a dog and pony show, and then at the end of the day get Reed, Durham, Schumer, and all these other turncoat traitors before the cameras and pat each other on the back. It's just the most disgusting display of hubris that could even be imagined. Our nation is imploding. It's imploding under the debt created by these criminals, and they sit here, and it's almost as if they're all going to get it together and go sit at the bathhouse and congratulate each other for a job well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably what's happening there.
Yeah. It's a
Well,
horrible
hey,
But
we got
back
to
to
see
the-
some really interesting things this week, and we had a guy that you think you're upset. What about that guy that mowed the Lincoln Memorial just to find out that he's not going to see anything come of it? I imagine he probably didn't do it for a political, well, maybe a
Statement.
political reason. I don't know, but
Well, you know what?
not a lot of was accomplished. But there has been a hell of a show,
no.
Charlie McGrath. Haven't you been
No,
enjoying the theatrics?
No, I haven't. I've been hating the theatrics. A. B. There's been a lot accomplished. There's been a lot going on, and just like the Nancy Pelosi clip, we're going to see what's in this thing now that the Senate has passed it and it's moved on to the House of Representatives. And my hope and prayer is they shut this thing down and we see a collapse tomorrow, because America, that is what we need, a collapse. Every freaking day that we wait, every day that we borrow more from China, every day that we go further and further into debt, every day we keep committing illegal wars around this world, the pain becomes that much harder on our future. Period. We need this to collapse now. We needed to collapse 4 years ago. We needed to collapse in 2000. We needed to collapse when we decided that we were going to subvert the Constitution of the United States and give all the power to special interests, special corporate interests. This thing needs to come down, Doug Owen. And I know there's a lot of people, and you might even be a little bit in this camp, that things are going to, gradually work themselves out and turn the corner. And I don't mean to put you on the spot that you're in that camp. I just think I'm a little more, maybe a little more conspiratorial than you might be. I don't see it turning the corner. I don't see it settling into anything other than a new world order where you truly are treated as cattle, and you have this elite class that is going to tell you what to do from the second you wake up in the morning, everything that can go in your mouth, who you can go to bed with, where you can sleep at, the kind of bed you can sleep on. This is the direction we're going on. Total, complete, global governance by the uber elite while we sit there and just take it.
Well,
That's
I think
what
we're there. We're there. I mean, there is a lot of regulation over mattresses. Okay, there's a specific amount of health labeling and such.
Can't
that,
take the tag off.
No. You got to keep that tag on there. I mean, there's a lot of bureaucracy. So I think that maybe the only difference that I have is that I believe we're already there. People just believe that they're falsely free in this country, and so they're waiting for the final, death blow. Finally, well, yeah, the final countdown, and I'll refrain. And
Yeah, good boy. I'm proud of you.
yeah, self-control. You have to. I believe in self-control and learning from that. But so I think that we've already turned that corner, and so at this point, I'm just kind of on the fence, I guess, as to what the best solution is, because I would like to see a peaceful transference of power and national sovereignty, and I think that more and more people are looking at that as the solution. So I like where we're headed, because through all of this, there's only two things that you can say, and that is that people are more competent than individuals are more competent than government. We can and should do things ourselves. So it gives us that opportunity to empower ourselves. But at the same time, you got the sheeple out there, and so it's something to contend with. So I don't take it lightly. When somebody says, well, we have to watch this thing come down, there are great impacts beyond our borders that transcend the global economy. So is that going to produce something even in the next 100 years that is more free? Because time and time again, I see throughout history, after coup d'etats, after massive currency destruction, empires falling, there's a couple 100 years of really bad things that follow. So I'm not a proponent of that as the solution. I think that we have to get beyond these numbers. But what does that really mean, and who pays the price? And that's going to be the next question, because we both agree we can't pay back this debt, and so there has to be something that happens. Now, what that is, that's the grand debate. That's what we argue.
Well, that is the grand debate, isn't it? And when I think of things like the increase of the debt ceiling and the expansion of government, I certainly take it in a place in my mind anyway that is far beyond money. But we always have to start with money, because we have this stranglehold, which is this faith in a piece of paper issued by a private bank that drives everything. And even if you don't want to believe that, and you don't think that you're consumed by money, and maybe you don't sit there and think about making it all day long, but it certainly does dominate every aspect of your life. I don't care if you're off the grid or if you think you're self-sufficient. You have to participate in this economy, and this control mechanism, which is the Federal Reserve note, is the key motivating factor around the world. But when I start talking about debt and money and further down the hole, I'm not thinking of it as pieces of paper and greedy and why should we be concerned about these kind of things, when in reality it's all fantasy. But it isn't all fantasy if everybody believes in it, right? And it isn't all fantasy if it literally leads to the continued expansion of Empire America, the continued killing of people around the world, and the continued loss of sovereignty by the people of this country, because debt is power. It isn't right. And I know I'm going to get the people, I get them all the time that say it's a fantasy. It might be a fantasy, but it's a fantasy that's believed. So it might as well be reality. So when I see Congress going over and above, once again, committing us to $1 trillion more in debt, it really, really irks me, because it isn't just money. It isn't just money. It's literal lives that are going to be lost because of
it's
this
the
expansion.
misappropriation of it. You don't want to see it going towards the military-industrial complex. Sure. We don't want to see it going towards corporate welfare. At the same time, these war hawks preach austerity for the average people that are paying upwards 30, 40, 50% of whatever wages they're making. The big story of the week has been the McDonald's workers and the $7 billion, I think it is, that the government subsidizes these low-wage workers, to be able to live. So the corporate profits and those transferences. And it's interesting, because that's where I think that most of this goes to, because when you owe, that is a hindrance. And so we see this burden of debt as this moral obligation. And more of us are, I don't see this as a moral obligation. I don't feel obliged to pay back to something that was ill-gotten. And at some point, it becomes odious debt, and it becomes unrecoverable. And I think that that's where we're at, where the credit card company says, look, we've put you into collections. They just that somebody buys that and says, hey, we might be able to get 10 cents for every dollar this guy owes. That's where we're at economically. So at some point that
you mean on a macro scale?
Yeah, on a macro scale. There's a global saturation of debt, and there is, at some point you have saturation to the point where the economy completely stagnates, and I don't think that they'll let it get to that point. But
I think it's there.
Well,
are you kidding?
Here's a sweetheart deal. This is an example. There's this company right here locally that will basically get this Capone deal where they are a multinational corporation. They won't have to pay inventory taxes and other things to operate in the city if they can get this this exemption. So basically, they skirt taxes and they create jobs. And so we have like this huge compromise. We give up national sovereignty. We give up individuality and our own independence in numbers for jobs. And so basically we transfer more and more corporate welfare to a very small group of people. But throughout history, there has always been a reset. There has always been a jubilee. At some point, you hit that point. We are almost at that point. Now, what happens? In 1812, we had a war and we had a banking war. And, that was the last time we lost a central bank in this country. We're there. I mean, there are obvious solutions, and that's why I think that a lot of it, for me, is just kind of a non sequitur, because they could print debt-free money. There's no reason they couldn't print notes or digits and pay back the Federal Reserve and create and charge interest to these institutions like Jamie Dimon and soak them just like they have soaked the American people. So the solution is there. It's just a matter of will. And, well, you mentioned the betrayal at the beginning of the podcast that we are watching on display tonight.
Yeah, and you know what? I like the idea of Jubilee. I've had that conversation with many folks, Aaron Hawkins and several other in this genre about solutions and the fantasy notion of money and fiat currency. And we've talked before on how wampum and tally sticks and things like that are can be considered money. Sure. And I'm all for that, Doug. I really am for that, but. I'm not sold on Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, the decentralized peer-to-peer aspect of it. Not I buy into anything being digital and anonymous, and that's one of the things. I mean, cash is always king. Cash is king, or gold, or anything else. And
yeah, and the whole Bitcoin thing. Anything. It's you're using dollars to get them, right? And then you're valuing it in dollars. It seems that it's more of an investment. And there is a lot of, you and I talked off air before about a lot of shady characters or players or actors.
Were you talking about the Silk Road and all of it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it's just a matter of time. There was an MIT guru that was talking about how the banks will finally push for regulation and they'll go after them. And they're already trying to seize the few exchanges that you can use for Bitcoin, but it's becoming more and more mainstream and popular. I saw a local news segment. News segment on what is Bitcoin in different places around Austin that you can use your Bitcoin. So,
but Doug, this is my point. This is my point. That Bitcoin, whatever, trading gold and silver, an alternative to the dollar. All these things are I think important to be talking about, but none of them are going to happen. None of them are going to happen with the status quo. Right. And the status quo is so ingrained and so entrenched and has so much power because of this fantasy that we're controlled by debt. But it is a reality because everybody stands up and believes they have this moral obligation. You talked on a little bit, about a credit card company selling your debt 5 times down the road to where it's worth a penny on the dollar. Well, that's what we need as a whole society, to stand up and say enough is enough. I'm not participating. I'm not participating in a system that pockets billions of dollars for J.P. Morgan to issue food stamp cards. I'm not going to participate in a system that profits billions of dollars by killing people around the world. And it's going to take a mass awakening for that to occur. And so the question always comes back to me, at least in my mind, is what is that going to be? What is it going to be? I'm shocked and amazed that I'm sitting here in 2013 talking about yet another debt ceiling increase. 8 trillion to 17 trillion. When does it end? When do we wake up? How long do we pretend that the people in charge, right, these people that are running roughshod over this nation, have got there, A, legitimately, and B, have the best interest of the people of this country in mind when they do these acts? What's it going to take, Doug Owen? What's it going to take? Is it going to spill over
I mean,
seriously?
there's two things here, though. I mean, there's the reality of the need for growth. There's the reality for the need for inflation to continue to make payments because it is a Ponzi scheme, right? Everybody's bought in. We all agree it's a Ponzi scheme. Even central bankers agree that it's Ponzi-esque. You know, it requires all of us to put in, just like Obama healthcare requires everybody to put into the slush fund, and then maybe the insurance companies that wrote this thing will give you a break, but don't hold your breath. So we have to have this. So regardless of the intentions, let's say you had the best intentions and that you're going to somehow work through this system to try to create the desired result, and that's more jobs in this economy, more growth, more stimulus, all of these things. You don't have a lot of tools as a central banker. You have inflation, you have the printing press, and that's what they used. And so if you want to perpetuate that and continue to have that unhindered growth that is required for the Ponzi system, then you have to keep this puppy moving, keep people shaking their butts and serving people burgers each and every day of the week. So if that's your goal.
You know what? And I would even be like, well, okay, I guess this system will work for another couple decades if the power that was being issued, let's call it what it is. Let's quit calling it money and let's quit calling it debt. If the power that was being issued, because we serve this money, right? We serve this. So let's call it what it is. If the power that was being issued was legitimately going to the people. Doug Owen, if you would have received in 2008, right? If you'd have received a check from the government for $250,000 and every listener of this podcast would have received a big fat check from the government so they could go out and stimulate the economy and keep the Ponzi scheme going, well, then you know what you do? You sit back and you say, well, you know, at least it's going to the people. The people are going to be responsible for it. At least it's going to go to them. But that isn't what's happening. We're going down the road, this continuation of the Ponzi scheme, more and more debt. And at the same time, we're seeing incremental increase in the power of a very select few and a very much broadening gap between those that have that power and those that do not. And, you know, so as we continue playing the Ponzi scheme game, we will have more and more people becoming more disenfranchised, less powerful, and all this amassed power ending up in the hands of just a couple people, namely government and the people that run that government, to where you have what? You have a complete breakdown of society, you have a complete breakdown of law and order, and you have complete and total misery across this country that didn't have to be so. You know, it didn't have to be this way. We could have done it earlier, but we didn't. We sat back, we watched, and now we're going to all pay the price a decade or 2 decades down the road. Unfortunately, it seems the path that we're on, Doug.
Well, we are. Absolutely. And you look at, is it Switzerland or Sweden? I was just trying to find out, but one of these countries has proposed to...
The hot chocolate?
No, they well, maybe.
That's Swiss Miss.
Yeah, it's delicious. No, I don't endorse Swiss Miss. It's probably GMO, but unfortunately, if it's a big brand name.
This podcast brought to you by Swiss Miss.
But it's either Switzerland or Sweden. I saw it this week. They're proposing to give everybody about $2,200 per month. Everybody gets on the dole. If you don't have the money, they give you $2,200. Let's see what happens. And people are like, oh, my God, I'm so offended by this. Oh, my God, it's socialism run amok. It's disgusting. It's horrible. And I think, okay, yeah, it is absolutely socialism run amok. But let's think about this. They're giving the people the money. So what is that going to do? Okay, people that don't have money are going to spend that money immediately back into the system, and they're going to be spending it, hopefully, in the private sector. And the majority of people that don't have money that would now have money are going to spend it in the private sector. They're not going to be giving it to government, or and maybe government gets a lot of it back through fines and other things that they charge the people therefore. But you start thinking about, well, if this is such a horrible approach and we're so offended by it, I wonder what the overall outcome would really be. Benefit versus the cons. Now, people like you and I think a lot of Americans honestly think, well, that's unfair. But really, if you did this, I think at least this will, if they do this, and I don't know that they will, but it would prove that actually you would lower crime. You would have people like women that get stuck in these spousal abusive relationships be able to free themselves because they do have enough money to take their children away from abusive homes. I mean, I just start going through this list of things that people that just had a little bit of money could get out of a better situation. They wouldn't be so desperate to steal from you, Even if they're drug heads and they're buying crystal methamphetamines, they got a few $100s to work with. So why is that not okay? And I think
it's fine.
I think ultimately most of us think it's not okay.
Sure, because we've been conditioned to.
We believe that is people are getting away with something.
Right.
And
right.
That's what it's all about. Just going right back to those Republicans. Well, Obama's getting away with not having to do Obamacare. It's going to be fine. We're going to screw everybody, 300 million plus of you, but we're going to make sure that Obama goes and tells, his doctor that he's a transsexual or whatever, what other kind of things that he has to share because of Obamacare with the federal government besides your social security number and your credit rating. That's one of the things that's going to be your biggest number. That's the mark of the beast.
That is. Well, listen, Dinah Everett-Snyder has been doing some great work on digging into this Obamacare, what it really means when you sign up for it. I mean, it's the final blow in personal freedom, and it's absolutely horrifying. So if you yeah, baby, that's a final count. That's a final straw, is what it really should be said. And the argument that the Republicans make, Bonner make, and all these other Republicans come before the cameras and tell you they're trying to do, which is we're going to defund this thing, we're going to stop it dead in its tracks. I've been saying for a month, Doug, that it's a joke, man. These people were there when it got passed, right?
Yeah.
These people could have stopped it before it became law, but it didn't because we had a crisis that brought us into that, and never-ending crisis since then. Back to your point, though, giving the money directly to the people, like you're saying they're thinking about doing in Switzerland.
Right.
I believe that most people that if you live in a red state, Texas, you're in a red state. If you hear that kind of notion, you're thinking, oh, that's welfare, that's socialism, that's communism. But what we have now, I think, is more insidious than communism. It's corporate.
It's corporate communism. It's fascism, and that's what we have here in America. Like it or not, that's what we have. We have fascism. We have the corporate government state.
That's right. And I don't even know, Doug, if it's called fascism. Maybe one of the listeners can send us an email on this, or maybe you know. See, because in my definition, fascism is government controls industry, right? Mussolini controls the industry.
Pretty
but
close to
we
it.
don't have that. Huh?
Well, not quite, but I mean,
we got the reverse. We have industry controlling government. What is done in government is behalf of industry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I guess the only distinction would be who really holds the power. And I think in most classical fascist Mussolini, type representations of what fascism is, that the only difference is the figurehead. Mussolini was a figurehead, but you never really have a dictatorship. You always have to have a broad, huge, multi-thousand person, system at the upper echelon. I mean, you look at China. There's no one person that can run China. There's, billions of people there. It takes a lot of people and a very elaborate and centralized system to keep that going. And
the apparatchik. Yeah. It's the minions that go out and do it. Doug, you're getting a bit watery on me here, and your video's getting a bit digital.
You sound good.
Okay. I think it might be, maybe we're overloading your system right now, but yours is good now, but I'll let you know. And if it does it again, we'll kill the video feed and see if that helps. But I do like that video stream because we can sit here and watch each other, and I think we do less walking over the backs of one another. But yeah, the point is, I think that the tyrants have learned well. You don't put the fascism face on a system that you're trying to take over covertly, because you do have that figurehead. But we don't. We have a government that is completely incestuous with financial special interest, and financial special interest is spread out to the point that there is no head to cut off to kill that serpent. So here we sit at September 29th, 2008. I know that seems like ancient history to a lot of people, Doug, but it wasn't that long ago. It was, and in my opinion, a vote of 228 to 208 to not support the bailout was the last act of Congress on behalf of the American people. And since then, it has been governed by crisis nonstop. And since then, we went from 8 trillion to 17 trillion. Onward we march to 30, 40, 50 trillion dollars in sovereign debt, and a continued degradation of our standard of living, out of our incomes, and the chasm is going to continue to grow between the haves and the have-nots. So today's news with the Senate coming out, holding hands, patting each other on the back, it just absolutely makes me sick. I do hold out hope, but it isn't in any form of governance at this point in time. I sent an email to Stuart Rhodes tonight, founder of Oath Keepers. You've had him on before. I've had him on before.
Actually, I haven't, but I know who he is. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you've interviewed him before. Good guy. I'm a member of Oath Keepers, and they're becoming a little bit more in your face about especially about what they believe is coming next in the country, and they're starting to form more action groups. They're calling them. Where they're getting people together that have combat experience, military experience, medical experience, and they're I think they're seeing a picture of where we're going now.
I think the NSA is seeing a picture of where Oath Keepers is going.
Yeah, well, the NSA is seeing everything, so it really doesn't matter. And so who cares?
That's my only critique, is that I just think it's bad to badge yourself and basically let everybody know exactly where you stand. I think that it's just kind of dangerous, especially for people that are in the service or prior military, because there's been such an attack. And so we know how much of this is being systematically, chronicled, and it's kind of, whether he wants it to be or not, it ends up kind of by proxy becoming a honeypot, for people that are, well-trained dissidents. So that's my only critique. That's my only concern about
I understand your critique. I understand your critique, and it isn't like that thought hasn't been in my head a lot over the last couple of years. But
come and
honestly,
whack you first, Charlie McGrath.
Well, you know what though? But there's no. What are you going to do, Doug? I mean, even though you just said that on air right now, that blacklisted news is running through some algorithm, man. There's a lot of dissidents there's a lot of people like myself that have email addresses from people in Iran or from Syria or whatever that ran through some filter that's connected to Doug Owen because I visited your website before. I've exchanged emails with you before. So really, what the hell difference does it make? It's 6 degrees of separation. Everybody's connected to everybody. Everybody's being run through the big filter, I call it.
No, nothing. I just think it's something to be aware of, something to think about, because the element of surprise is important. And so if you put all your cards on the table, everybody knows where you're at. But, if the ones you hold close to your chest, you become the X factor. I'm just saying, strategically, I don't know.
Cell. We need sleeper cells. What you're saying.
I just, I like I said, I mean, it's just something to think about. That's all I'm telling for people out there that want to join different groups that really display their political affiliations and their. I mean, not that I don't myself, so it's not to say that you should be scared of it. I don't mind at all. I think that the NSA or any other agency, internationally, globally, even the Chinese could get their fill of Doug Owen and Charlie McGrath on the DoomCast. So it's not that we don't put those things out there already. And the government obviously knows where I live, so that's not a concern to me.
You know for a fact that when the NSA is collecting this mass troves of data, what did we learn this week? That they're collecting entire address books now,
right?
From your email list. So they're collecting everything on everybody, and it isn't like you're going to have some pencil pusher in D.C. literally listening to this broadcast. I really do think it's an algorithm. It's voice recognition. It's all being run through filters and computers, and they're looking for key things and they're looking for key associations. But obviously, if you're into this chat room right now, by the way, I should have announced that early on.
Yeah.
If you're listening, if Doug Owen's in there, I'm in there. Gary Hendershot's in there. Cowboy Craig is in there. Horse's wife is in there. There's a lot of people in there. If you're listening on Spreaker and you're wondering where this at, wideawakenews.com, click on Wide Awake Radio. It will take you into the chat room. When you get in there, if you get in there, mute the sound, the autoplay in there, or you're going to be listening to the rinse feed. Again, this is something Doug and I are going to work on and eventually have our own dedicated DoomCast chat room.
I've got plans. I've got a lot of plans. I've got a lot of things I'm juggling here, but we're going to make it happen. Because I think what I'm going to do is integrate my Blacklisted Radio into Blacklisted News, because really I'm going to be putting most of the stuff on there anyway, all the videos and the podcast. So, and then I'll have a spare server site.
Maybe we should
DoomCast
merge.
there.
You wanna do a little merger action going on here?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know what's in it for me. How many debt notes can I get from you, Charlie McGrath? Yeah, can I twist it till it hurts? Come on.
It already hurts, brother. It already hurts. Listen,
we'll figure it out.
And you and I have both had, I'm pleased and proud of both of us that we're able to still come together weekly and do this over the last month, because both of us have had a lot going on.
Doom.
Personally. Yeah,
Doom
a lot of doom.
is coming the way of doom.
It is, absolutely. In fact, I'm not going to get it. Medical situation, my son had emergency appendectomy a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, rather.
Yeah. How's he doing?
He's doing great. And it's amazing to me. It's one of these things that you forget, but the older you get, you forget how quickly you recover when you are a wee nipper. But when you're walking around 12, 13 years old, and you go in for an operation, a week later you can play ball again. If it happens to old timers like us, well, we're laid up for a bit. I'll speak for myself. You're younger than me, Doug.
Not by much.
Not by much.
How old are you?
I'm old as dirt.
Okay, that's pretty old.
Older than dirt. Yeah.
So when you went to school, there were pterodactyls and the like. It's pretty.
There was, yeah. I graduated in 1987.
Covered wagons. People were still.
Not 1887, 1987.
Oh.
Yeah.
You graduated in 87.
87. Now that was Gary Henderson, my friend Smart Scarecrow. He was 1887.
You graduated 10 years before me. Well.
Yeah, I thought I was about 10 years older.
Yeah.
42. 43. No, 43. Sorry, I missed it.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
35. And
yeah,
I feel like I've just cracked the nut.
I don't know what that means yet. I'm pretty sure I don't want to know what that means.
No. I just feel like that I've just kind of caught on, or at least come to some realizations, and actually had maybe some epiphanies.
Yeah. I could see that. I think, when I graduated from high school and ended up in the military, and then ended up in Iraq, and it was a lot of conditioning that I had to shed to get out of the neocon red. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get out of the rah USA chant, let's kill somebody, and that that probably took me a decade.
Would you have wanted to beat me up if I had talked about Switzerland and giving poor people money?
Absolutely.
Just free checks for doing nothing, just hanging out, just being loiterers. Let me make it
really clear right now. Yeah, that would have been me at 22 years old. In the military, just coming out of a war. Absolutely, I was sold. I was Sarah Palin red, right?
Wow.
I was Rush Limbaugh red.
I was pretty much like that after the military, and for a while.
Sure.
Took a while to kind of. But then I started watching TV, and that was the big epiphany when I started watching cable network news. I thought that there was news, and I believed that there was real news and things that were happening, and I just wasn't reading the New York Times or the Washington Post, or listening to the the Sunday shows, finding out what's happening on BBC. And I started watching this guy named Dan Abrams. I think he was on CNN.
I remember Dan.
Yeah. And
what happened to him?
I guess Anderson Cooper.
Oh, okay.
Anderson Cooper took that away. Yeah, so I started watching this guy, and all of a sudden I realized, my God, we were, chasing the runaway bride and the Michael Jackson scandal. And I'm like, okay, well, this is just kind of, a soap opera. So I changed the channel over to Fox, over to CNBC, and, some of the other, smaller cable news networks. It's just crap. And I realized after a while, I'm like, this is all BS. And it took about a month of watching TV to kind of really come to that conclusion that this is not even news. I'm like, okay, well, we have a war. Okay, what's going on with the war? What's happening here in 2003? 2001, I was pretty aware of what was kind of happening, and I was pretty disillusioned with what Bush had done, and as a governor as well in Texas. So, and then to see, just the complete incompetence and the faux pas in Afghanistan. And actually, I will say that what's his face, Michael Moore, in his documentary, kind of was epiphany for me, because I didn't know that they had let the Bin Laden family fly out of the country that day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Is this? And then it was like, it's all lies.
Yeah,
people,
there's
lies.
well, there certainly comes a moment where the finger comes out of the dam, so
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
and then there's no going back. But it is harder, especially I know we have a lot of service men and women and ex-servicemen and women that listen to the programs and
Sure.
the sites and stuff. But and usually they are when they turn as it is when they turn from perceived reality to reality. They are usually the best activists there is because they've seen the results of believing a lie, right? And so after
They take it very
9/11,
personally. And that's
absolutely.
why they're so dangerous to the state, and that's why there is
That's
a
exactly
focus
right.
on them, and that's why they're drugging them because
that's
nobody.
exactly right.
You see these people that are being used in Afghanistan, these little girls, okay, young ladies that are being used as bait to bring out the Taliban, and they're popping them full of psychotropic serotonin uptake re-inhibitors and the like, and it's because they're depressed. If your country was using you as
That's
a
right.
freaking dummy, you would be depressed too, and that's why these
That's
guys come out and they're just, unfortunately,
Shit crazy.
yeah,
That shit crazy. They
I was
come
in the
out and
Navy,
they're
so it
crazy.
wasn't a big deal. I never saw real combat. We shot a lot of Tomahawk missiles into Kosovo, but I didn't see any, actual bloodshed. So it was much different in the '90s. But people that are going
But
and spending.
that isn't that. I mean, that truly was the beginning, right? That was
Oh,
the beginning of the never-ending war cycle under Clinton, and then continuation under Bush, then 9/11, and it's been war footing ever since then, and it is damaging a lot of people. This is why the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, all the psychotropics that these kids are on, coming back home, and they're nuts. They go nuts, and the story. I said it on a podcast a few weeks ago. There was an Afghan vet that blew away his friend 7 feet from my garage a month
Oh
ago.
yeah.
Yeah, 20-gauge shotgun, shoved it in his stomach and pulled the trigger. I mean, and these are the stories that'll just get written up as a fight over a girl, but in reality, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of our men and women coming home who are just completely and totally jacked up.
But don't worry, they're going to mechanize all of this, and it's going to be automated and autonomous, and we won't have to have people. It'll be Clone Wars, just like in Star Wars. At some point, I mean, I don't know if you saw some of the crazy new robots that were on display this week, but they're there. I mean, we have the technology, and now they are going to be making their own decisions, or at least they have the potential to make their own kill decisions. And so, I mean,
it seemed like that technology was a few years away, not very many. I mean, not certainly. We're not looking at a decade, but this completely autonomous, put it in the air, it'll kill the right person.
Drones flying. I mean, just think about how crazy in 2001 you would have been to think that there would be drones flying over this country, that we would be where we are today with the military on the ground, engaging the people, with the TSA touching you at your football game and beyond, and the Viper teams. I mean, people would have thought, this is some horrible, draconian, Orwellian nightmare. But we're in it. And so it's really hard for me because, I just saw us moving into it and was screaming and kicking, and now we just live in this ubiquitous, surveillance state all over the place where I live. Everywhere you go, every corner has a camera. Every one of them. It might as well be London. Everywhere you go, there's a camera. But unfortunately, when you get your car stolen, the government never has any of those videos conveniently. When you need the surveillance state, it's usually absent.
Well, it's ironic, and you didn't even know I was going to bring this up, but I printed off a joint publication 3-28, and I don't know if you remember when this came out. I held it up in front of the camber there for you to look at.
Looks
in
very
July.
official.
It is official. I mean, it's a defense. It's out of the Defense Department, and it's defense support of civilian authorities. And a lot of it has to do with what's going to happen in a crisis that is spawned by either civil unrest due to natural disaster and or economic implosion type disasters.
Right.
But it spells out exactly what the plan is. It's all about continuity of government. And in this, page 27, of Joint Publication 3-28, it goes on to spell out what the military's role is going to be and whose authority will have to seek. And the simple clip notes to this is none. If you know what hits the fan in Texas, where you're at tomorrow, due to an economic implosion, and the local authorities cannot uphold and defend the government properties. This is the verbiage in this: government properties or assets. Then the military can be implemented and used against the people without authorization of the president or anybody else. In an emergency situation, they can take control on their own. And Doug, laws like this.
Do you like the distributed power aspect, or would you rather it be something that's directly from the executive? I mean, I think that if you don't have some kind of plan, a lot of people, including myself, would say, well, wow, that's pretty incompetent, because we do have natural disasters.
Your governor does have a plan. He is the commander-in-chief of the National Guard of the state of Texas.
Sure.
And the National Guard is different than the United States Army, right?
And Rick Perry is part of that blue ribbon panel of governors that are working directly with the executive on these exact type of situations and continuity of government. So, yeah, I'm saying this kind of tongue in cheek, but
I got you.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens, and people have no idea. This is secret government to a certain extent, because, and I think it with the Boston bombing, we saw it. When there is crisis, all bets are off. Everything that's a norm in or unnormal situation is it's potentially chaos.
Right.
Police
by design, my brother. By design.
Yeah.
It isn't by. It isn't.
But
by
even if
accident.
it's not, it's you. People just react however they think best. So there's plenty of examples of that. Now you have some rules, but I don't know if they're any better than just people using their own common sense. Time and time again, we see how it hinders. During Hurricane Katrina, it was.
Katrina, Sandy, the bombing, the so-called bombing in Boston, 9/11, 2008, all of these things, every budget battle and every debt ceiling debate we've had since that time, umpteen of them, that's not all accident. I mean, that is immersion into the crisis state, crisis reaction solution. And, this you talked about in 2001, would be horrified to see or to know just a decade later, we'd have drones, we'd have this build out of the NSA, $1 trillion worth of surveillance, fusion centers around the country.
Right.
We'd be horrified. We think it's a crackpot, conspiratorial nonsense, but it isn't. It's all 100% true. This is all happening, and it's all happened under crisis. Just like the news we started the program with tonight. It happened under crisis. And I want to get to this because I know we're coming up close to an hour, but I watched C-SPAN I was watching it right up until we started the program tonight, because I'm looking for all the back patting and congratulatory garbage vomit that comes out of these political whores' mouths. Man, I'm really vulgar tonight.
You are. You're more vulgar than normal.
I'm never vulgar. I never swear. I'm just really
I'm
agitated.
appalled, shocked.
Well, these political whores back at the podium, right, vomiting all over each other, telling them how great of a job they did. It was telling that they said they've prevented this crisis, and they've also prevented the ability to use the debt ceiling as a weapon in the future. Now, that didn't make sense to me, because this deal, as I understand it, raised the debt ceiling till February, funded the government till January. However, in doing a little bit more digging right before this program, I found out that isn't the case, Doug Owen. As we live in governed by crisis, as we tweak freedom from the positive to the negative, we had that happen tonight as well. In this legislation that the Senate already passed and the House more than likely soon will, they're changing the rules of how they're going to address the debt ceiling. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
this is what it's all about. It's about not having a debt ceiling and just moving into a world where we have endless amounts of debt. And so they're basically nullifying Congress's need and their constitutional demand to balance a budget for the American people. So the American people, We don't. It's transference of power into the executive, just like continuity of government has done over the last 10 years.
Amen. And this is how they're going to do it. This is how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Give you a crisis and give it to you so many times, and let a little bit of pain out there, and then say it's a betterment. It's for the betterment of the United States. Again, the message is representative government no longer works. But let me break down how they're going to do this. Currently, as it stands right now, there is there's a legal limit on the amount of debt that the government can take on. And when it reaches that level, only Congress has the ability to raise that debt ceiling. Now, only Congress can raise it with a vote to the affirmative of increasing the debt ceiling. So they have to get together, the two bodies, the House and the Senate, and they have to say, we are going to vote yes to raise the debt ceiling. Now, that might sound pretty simple, and it is. And we see how it has been how it's been abused every quarter, it seems like. However, in the new legislation, the deal cut by Reid and McConnell in the Senate, that's no longer the case. Now, when it comes to a debt ceiling, it's automatically going to be raised unless there's a vote to the negative, right? Unless Congress says no. So they just flip the script.
Opt out. Yeah.
That's right. If you don't do nothing, it's going to be raised. You have to literally get a vote of Congress to say no. So it's the exact opposite. So now Congress gets together and says, no, hell no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling. It's just a simple matter of the president vetoing that and saying, nope, it's automatically going to happen because that's the way the new legislation reads. The debt ceiling is going to increase. So it goes back to Congress. They have to have 2/3 majority in order to override that veto. And as we well know, in the land of divide and conquer, blue and red, 2/3 majority might as well be the same as saying impossible. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And what more can they do? I don't know. It just infuriates me to no end. But we're so far down the path here. I mean, the person that set inside of me that says, well, according to the Constitution, this is huge breach of the good faith of the people, the social contract. But we're so far gone. I don't know if there's any way that you can salvage this. I mean, they haven't passed a budget in so many years.
2009, I think, was the last budget.
Yeah, it's
continuing resolution.
But this is just a huge solidification of the executive branch of government taking those powers. I mean, look at TPP. The future of the economy is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and it's a corporate government secret deal that you can't know about.
That's right.
I mean, can you top it? I mean, yeah, I'm trying to be appalled, but I mean,
I don't know. And you said, what do you do about it? Where do you go to get away from it? And the answer is simple.
Switzerland. Let's go.
Maybe.
I'm ready to get my check. We can start up the DoomCast. We can do it over there. We'll get on the dole. Hang out. We got the hair. We already. We can be incognito. I don't feel like I owe this debt. Let's go, Charlie McGrath. Let's do this.
Let's do it. We're out. Peace out. Next broadcast will be from high up in the Alps.
That's right.
The Swiss Alps.
It's gonna be great.
Yodeling our way to joy out of the Doom.
I'll get a North Face jacket. Just hang out. It'll be cool. All right, man. So I think that we've kind of explored the problem, and as much as they laud this as a solution and how great they've done, just think about all the people that were hurt during all of this, and they are just so pleased with themselves. It's telling.
And I know you're going to wrap it up here, but let me just put this stat out here. It isn't. I mean, that today was this last few weeks has been a very doom filled for the path of this nation, right? For our outlook, for our future. There is a lot of doom, and if you can't see that, then you're just not awake at all. But there is hope, Doug. There is a little bit of glimmer in the doom.
You hear America calling? Is that what you're saying?
That's America. That's the NSA calling.
Oh no.
13% now. 13% of this nation feels that we're on the right path. That means a very overwhelming 80+% know that we're on the wrong path. And there's absolutely no reason why these people should feel anything other than we are on the wrong path. When you consider that right now, average working person in this country, Doug Owen, Charlie McGrath, everybody listening out here, shoulders $123,000 of sovereign debt of the United States. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell, Harry Reid hold hands, pat each other on the back. Mitch McConnell, the Republican who sold out and agreed on this deal, he's going to get a $2 billion boost. Yeah, huge net worth. But he's going to get a $2 billion project as earmarked for his state of Kentucky. Absolutely.
I thought
the deal.
Wow. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, though. I mean, these guys are absolute criminals, and this is
horse.
It's mafia government.
Horse.
Dead horse, and, well.
You can start the podcast with that. Dead whore.
Dead whore. I don't know. What else can we leave the Doomers with? We have to give them a moment of, clarity, something that they can take away from this.
September 29, 2008, your government stood up for you. Since then, they've stabbed you in the back consistently over and over again, and they will till there's nothing but a rotting corpse left of the United States of America. Doug Owen, finish it up.
Yeah, let's just leave it there. We'll see. We'll see if we can make it through another week. Always interesting, and we'll recap next Wednesday as we always do. Doug Owen, Charlie McGrath, signing out. Until next time, take care, my friends.
Durka, Muhammad Jihad. Haka Sherpa Sherpa. Bakala. Oh, Durka.
You just got toys, man. You got too many toys. Do me a favor.
Yeah.
Are you tapped for time tonight? What are you doing?
I'm not tapped. I'm just hanging out.
If you get the cut version, send it to me as quick as you can because I'll get it posted.